That is a new voice.
Next up, we're opening the public meeting. You ready for that, Emily?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and open that up.
Cool. Thanks, Jill. So this is a public hearing on an amendment to the regulating plan for form-based code. I have prepared a staff report. I modeled it off of the DRB staff reports to kind of have a rubric in place, so that regulating plan amendments are all handled the same way. This is the first one that's ever been done since form-based code was adopted in October 2022. And the amendment is to shift Trader Lane Green north, have the circulation pattern be different rather than a one-way street around the green. It would be the green fronted on three sides by a two-way street, and it would tee up with Wright Avenue. Wright Avenue right now dead ends near the Masons and Plumbers building, CVS, that part of town, right off Route 2A. When the Planning Commission voted forward to have a hearing, one comment was that the greens stay the same size and not get smaller. I measure this existing Trader Lane green to be about 1.12, 1.33 acres. That variation depends on if you're drawing a very fine detailed line around the green that Jeff originally drew, or having in some wiggle room for the gridded streets. And then the proposed green is 1.19 acres, so we're right there in the middle for same size.
I was just hoping that for once we'd get a case where it was actually a teeny bit larger. Because there's gonna be something that comes up before that green is complete that intrudes into it, whether it be transformers or something about parking or something about emergency vehicles having to have a pull off, or something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just because of the history.
So the next part of the staff report, I have the citations from the chapter, section 8 on the left, and then some staff notes. The first one is kind of an interesting one. When the regulating plan be amended, no block face shall have a length greater than 360 feet, and that the average perimeter not exceed 1,500 feet. However, when I looked in detail at all the blocks on the regulating plan as we've proposed, a lot of them don't comply with this. So it's like the snake eating its tail thing. And where we landed is there's no significant increase in nonconformity. So you have a couple blocks that the perimeter is a little bit longer, the length of the block is a little bit longer. In general, it's a net change. And then that Wright Avenue block, so from Route 2A to the end of the street, is getting shorter. And that's where we have that shop front street proposed. That's the only, sticky one in this whole staff report. The rest, things comply in terms of street connectivity. We're not having any dead ends or cul-de-sacs. No distances shorter than 150 feet between intersections. And then standards about interconnection are not applicable because we're not reducing interconnected streets. The next section is public open space. So this comes out of section 5 of public realm in the form-based code. It defines a green or square. And then in general, everything complies. So the greens must have 60% of their perimeter fronting on public rights of way. This one's interesting in that it has 64 feet on a public right of way that is a street frontage, but then that back side has a required building line, which will have a sidewalk along it. So it'll be streets and sidewalks on 3 sides and then a sidewalk on the 4th side. The dimension, so it can't be too narrow and it has to meet a ratio. It complies there. And then a lot of the other standards are about how it's designed, which will be at a future phase. Right now, we're just moving the big Lego pieces on the map. And when it's designed, either publicly or privately or in a public-private partnership, that it meet some of these standards. And that's some of the more nuanced things you were talking about. Tree placement, it can't have active forms of recreation on it, like a ball field, etc. The slope complies as well. It's an 8% slope. Yeah, and so what follows is a proposed motion to move this forward to the select board.
Emily, could you go back to the map?
Mm-hmm.
Jill, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in our original plan, Wright Avenue was supposedly going to be like a main street.
Mm-hmm.
How does this proposed change influence that, if at all?
None at all. Wright Avenue is still shown in the dark red, and terminates in, pretty much the same location. It gets slightly shorter. So if you look at this property line here, that's this property line here. So it gets slightly shorter, but then there's an administrative flexibility on these street corners of which form you build. So it's roughly the same.
And in fact, am I not, I thought Wright Avenue had too long of a block to be in
No,
conformance.
that's right.
And
Right.
this actually it shortens it to where it's in conformance on that last block, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, in some ways, with it kind of dead ending into that public space, that could be, you know, it's like how Church Street dead ends into the church. It's like there's something about that that could be useful if it gets built up, depending on how you imagine it.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question, Jill?
Yeah, I don't think we have any public, so I think questions can be amongst ourselves.
Yeah, so I guess we go through us and then we'll make the motion. First of all, I could tell you used a rubric of some kind. I didn't know where it came from. It was really nice the way this was presented, along with including Matt's original memo from last month and all that. The only question I had out of all of this is the street type for Trader Lane. I just wondered how much Trader Lane is going to become a bypass to Taft Corners main intersection, and have we defined the right street type for Trader Lane?
Mm-hmm.
Because people go left on Marshall Ave and right on Trader Lane.
Yes, I was thinking about people wanting to get the interstate coming on Route 2 from the west. Would they take Trader Lane to get to, is it Marshall?
Yes, so Trader Lane will be eligible for federal funding because it will be one of those
Okay.
transportation circ alternative projects.
And so here we have it in blue, not in green,
Right, so blue,
or orange for that matter.
yeah, let's jump over to, so the blue is ST 3880, and jumping towards the end of,
And I should probably clarify, I'm asking the question because the way it was designed before with the one-way slow traffic around the green would probably prevent people from using it as a bypass.
mhm.
So this will, I think, change the potential amount of use of that road.
Emily, at the end of, oh yeah, you've got it, never mind.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't screen sharing the right thing. So this shows 10 to 11 foot lanes, one in each direction, on street parking, and then the tree belt and a sidewalk.
This is Trader Lane.
This is, yeah,
This is what it's specified as, and I thought that was the right thing for the way it was before. I just wondered whether there's be more bypass traffic on it and whether it should be a larger street than this.
Right, the
Isn't that
green you
kind of what
mentioned-
we want with it? Is that it helps free up some of our other, it's like creating another passageway through the Grove Center.
Yes, I think we do want sort of bypass, ways for people to bypass, but this wasn't gonna be one of them because it had the little one-way section around a green.
That's right. I was gonna slow everybody down.
It wasn't certainly gonna get trucks traffic through, and this may get more truck traffic.
But just, so I hear you.
Yeah.
As somebody who's trying to use more back streets in Williston, why would you still not just take Harvest Lane? A lot of people do that.
I think it's gonna compete with Harvest Lane.
Harvest Lane is tricky because well, you have to take the left onto Marshall Ave, which is often a pain in the neck.
Well, what you have to do with
You
this
have to
trailer
do with
lane
this,
too,
yeah.
you'd be doing
Right.
it at Hannaford instead of down.
Yeah, fair
It-
enough.
It's really, to me, comparable.
I guess it depends how the intersection is structured and
Mhm.
lighting, light timing and all that stuff.
Sorry.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
I kind of hear you. I kind of like the idea of keeping it like this because, and please correct me, Emily, but I think I know that if we make the street bigger, people will drive on it more and they will drive faster. And that one of the ways to like reduce speed and control that is to make it feel and look more like this. Is that true or not true?
To some degree, this shows lane widths that are 10 to 11 feet, and I think the one-way was 13 feet with parking up, to accommodate parking on both sides. So the lane width will actually be slightly narrower on the two-way street than a one-way street. So it'll ebb and flow, and some of it's gonna come down to, both of them slow vehicles. They have additional bump outs for intersections and pedestrian crossings that'll help reduce the speed as well. But reduced speed isn't a detriment to how many vehicles can go through it, because the slower you go, the closer you can be to the car in front of you. And
Yeah, okay.
slower volumes can actually handle more throughput than a higher volume. And then you're right, Megan, that it does come down to making sure that you can actually make left turns onto busy roads, because right now it's a little bit of a free-for-all at some of the intersections.
And, I know, we had a lot of conversation about bike lanes and, I can't recall, what the situation is for this street.
Right, so I'm gonna jump back. Well, first I'll show one thing here and then we'll jump back. The ST 3886, which is on the regulating plan, is that bright green, is the one that has dedicated bike lanes. The one that's proposed for Trader Lane does not. The street on the regulating plan that's that bike lane is Harvest Lane. So Harvest Lane would provide that network of, the idea that there's dedicated bike lanes all the way around from Blair Park, Harvest Lane, Marshall, Maple Tree Place through Zephyr is planned to be that route. And then Trader Lane would be, all vehicles use, designed in such a way with the street parking, and the lane widths that it'll be safe for bicyclists to take up the whole lane, because cars aren't gonna be going as fast.
Yeah, I would say, like, as a cyclist, I would probably prefer Trader Lane, because there's a hill.
Yeah.
I mean, you're coming up the hill, if you're heading east, you're coming up the hill on Route 2 or on Marshall Ave. It's a little more significant on Marshall Ave, and, so, as just a comment, but.
In terms of the loop around for bikes, the part that goes around Blair Park arcs the wrong way for where you're trying to go, whereas if you cut across to Trader Lane, you'd be if you were trying to get down to Marshall Avenue, say you were trying to go to,
Yeah.
the, not EMS, whatever, that.
REI.
REI, thank you. If you're trying to go to REI and you were to the north end of town and you didn't want to go on 2A, instead of going on that loop-de-loop around Blair Park the wrong way and then coming up on Harvest, that is Harvest, yes.
Yeah.
It would be make more sense to get over onto Trader Lane to Marshall. So I'm not saying that I think we should change it. I'm really mulling it over and being a little bit concerned. I'm curious about one thing, the line into Healthy Living, Holland, whatever it's called, is blue here, but it's a divided street. Did it get built above what we said was we were interested in having there?
Which one?
Holland coming off of Route 2.
The section between LL Bean and Healthy Living
Oh.
is
Yeah.
separated with the median.
Right, yep,
That was built before we did form-based code.
right, yep, so that all was designed before form-based code,
Because
so.
that's really nice. It has bike lane on either side and a
And
divided
sidewalks.
roadway.
Mhm.
And what, Jill? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Sorry.
Oh, and there's sidewalks on both sides, so you can park and stroller and, yeah.
There does need to be a crosswalk there, but at
Yes.
the end of the median.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There does. Crosswalk there.
at the four-way stop.
Mhm.
No, it's only a two-way
It's only a
stop.
two-way
That's the
stop now,
problem.
yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be
Yeah.
a four-way stop with a crosswalk.
Yeah, it does.
But
need
that's
to
a
be
separate issue.
Yes. So the key difference between those two things is what is proposed, 3880, is 66 feet of right of way with 80 feet from building to building. And going to the one that has bike lanes would be slightly larger. It would be 76 feet of right of way, so 10 more feet of right of way and 6 more feet of streetscape. So it would be slightly wider. Melinda, do you know if that's like a deal breaker for the Trader Lane MOU stuff?
My guess is probably not, but yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think they, yeah, I think there's some flexibility in the exact street specification for Trader Lane at this point.
Who is bringing this forward?
So,
Oh, the DPW. was-
Combination.
Landowner,
yeah,
right?
yeah, the town, and the landowner have a memorandum of understanding, which has been like decades in the making to build Trader Lane, and be able to access federal funding for it. So now the next step would be to design and engineer the street and figure out what the actual cost is gonna be and how finalize how it'll be funded.
So I think I'm gonna express the opinion that it should have a bike lane. At least one, and I know we don't have one that has just one. I think we have the two.
Instead of, Harvest?
I'd be okay if Harvest didn't, because the kinds of businesses that are on Harvest are not the ones you access by a bicycle so much. And in terms of a bypass, this is a much better bypass, both in terms of elevation and directness.
Yeah, given our concentration of population up in the northeast corner. Oh, can
Sorry.
we have the map back? That's okay.
Oh, yeah.
It just seems like it makes a lot more sense to have, like, I understand the logic of the peripheral, the sort of outer periphery being a bike route,
Mhm.
but in practice, that often doesn't really work. Like there are lots of examples of planned bike facilities that are not at all how any logical cyclist would ride them. And so this makes a lot, I think this makes a lot more sense because we've got the continuity from whatever that street is.
The one that goes by the bank.
Helena Drive, that,
Oh, yeah.
what is that?
This-
Is that
this
is connecting, right? So eventually kind of connecting that to the neighborhoods
Mhm.
back there, and then going down Trader
Yeah.
Jane, would make a lot of sense, and it's a lot of really productive access to things that people would want
Mhm.
and could feasibly do on a bike.
And if Vermont State University expands on that campus, that's another location of potentially a lot of people
I would hold my breath on that,
who
but
use
yeah.
bikes. Mm.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say before? Did you have something?
I think I was just asking Chapin if he was swapping them or adding.
Oh,
I don't know, because we're not gonna redo Harvest Lane right away anyway, right? Harvest Lane is, we've said it's gonna have bike lanes, but it doesn't. Right?
Totally, I'm just thinking, should we change the map so that should we say,
Yeah,
fine, we're giving that up?
I think we should, because this route here is so much more direct than this.
Yeah.
And this goes downhill through here and then uphill through here. So I don't see that there's a lot of value added to what the businesses that are here for bikes, and there already is rec path along Route 2.
Mhm.
So it just feels to me like this, whether it then connects there or connects through 2A or across, I don't care.
Right, so it sounds
Right now,
like
this doesn't exist.
well, right.
change the designation on the street specifications map from the blue, which is 3880. Change it from blue to the bright green 3886, which has designated bike lanes
In both directions.
in both directions.
I would say that that is a reasonable exchange for losing the one-way traffic around the park, around the green space. Because that's, I mean, the one-way traffic, like, I'm sad that that's not gonna happen. And that's a loss, right?
Mhm.
And this isn't giving us anything new. There's no trade-off here. It's all just loss. And, the green space is the same size. Okay, it stayed the same size, but it didn't get bigger, as Chapin points out.
Mhm.
And we lost this, kind of unique situation of having one-way traffic flow around a central green space that, would just kind of mix things up a little bit, be a slightly different, tenor to the landscape and to, the neighborhood in that area. And so I think as kind of a compromise, like we're making a lot of compromises, so let's ask for bike lanes.
And to me, the downside for the owner is that the right of way is 10 feet wider. 5 feet on each side.
But they're gonna get a lot more, very
Yes.
local traffic, which
Yes.
is people frequenting the kinds of businesses that we're hoping go there, like, coffee shops and,
Yes.
daycare centers or whatever, that could be easily accessed by
Right,
bike.
so this table compares them. The target speed is the same, 20 to 25 miles per hour, two-way, one lane in each direction. All of them are 10 to 11-foot lanes, despite what this table says. Allowable turn lanes option, save parking dimensions. Curb to curb is only a 2-foot difference, so you go, because the bike lanes are proposed between the street parking and the tree lawn, so the bike lanes are not parallel to the vehicle traffic.
Right, they're protected on the inside of the parking, right?
Right, yeah, so it's like travel lane, parking, bike lane, tree lawn, sidewalk.
Yeah.
Um,
If I was the landowner, I would I mean, of course, I'm totally biased as a cyclist, but it's like that landscape is, there have been so many studies that show that's a really productive street formation in terms of the kinds of businesses that you have, in terms of the you know, kind of, the folks who are gonna stop there, not just pass through. And as far as making it appealing for residents, if there's some residential plans in here, that's way more appealing than having trucks flying by because they're trying to avoid that one intersection.
Right, yeah. So one thing I'm noticing in this table is it calls the bike lanes a cycle track. And none of the street specs have a bike lane per se. So it says all have bicycle facilities, which means that the street is designed at a speed
You can
that,
take the lane.
yeah, you would take the lane or have share of. No dedicated bike lanes, but then some of them have the cycle track.
I'd like the
The
trucks
cycle-
to stay on Harvest Lane and this be more for bicycles.
No, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that, because I don't think that there's,
The cycle track is way more appealing for people with kids or people who are new bike riders or who are pushing a cargo bike or all those things that we hope are happening more in the future. And sharing the lane is like, that's
for serious.
That's for people who have a lot of confidence in traffic and not for, you know, kids or new riders or folks with a thing of groceries or something.
So I don't know, Jill, if you want to take a straw poll, whether this is
Yeah.
I didn't mean to make a monkey wrench. I actually was thinking
Oh, I
about the
couldn't help you
bypass
monkey
traffic.
wrench it,
Yeah,
so
but
I share the guilt.
But I think it would be a good choice. So if, I don't know.
Yeah,
To
it sounds like
propose-
we wouldn't do the amendment as worded at the bottom of that two-pager.
We would just change.
But
we
with
would
that
change
addition
an
to the,
SB6. Yeah.
but,
And
sorry,
I'm
so oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, should we, in the same amendment, should we swap harvest or not? That's still where I'm stuck. So I'd be stuck on that, or should we just
No,
leave that and then deal with it later?
Yeah, I would say leave it and then deal with it later, because it's a long time before Harvest Lane ever gets fully rebuilt.
Yeah.
Well,
And
and
it
it's like
depends.
more bike lanes is never a bad thing, even if it's not an
Yeah.
ideal path for folks. It's like the more the merrier in terms of if we had
Right,
more connectivity for more people who commute or get groceries or whatever they're doing. So I don't think we should take anything out.
It's also not part of the same MOU, so it's.
So it doesn't matter, yeah.
Right.
that's
And
what ours-
I would hope that through traffic and trucks would use Harvest Lane
Yeah.
as the way to get around this area, while bicyclists would be more welcome to come through here.
And that's more consistent with having the green there and,
Yeah.
you know,
pedestrian
residential density and the supposed Main Street, which I'm still skeptical of, but.
So what is it, we're going from 3682, oh, thank you, to 3886.
Focus
friendly.
on
And then it
things.
says something like something PT for the cycle track. So
Yeah, it's gotten like significantly worse, right?
Yeah.
Projector,
when you
I'm
make it
after
big,
the
it's
meeting,
better.
I'll stand on a chair and try to focus it.
Emily, I thought it was, I thought it was 3880. The way it's proposed currently, 3880 to 3886.
you're correct, yep.
And does this 86 have to have something PC at the end of it because it has the cycle track? When we were looking at the examples,
PCTT,
PCT, yeah.
yeah.
I don't know whether it stands for pedestrian cycle track or something.
Perimeter cycle track,
Ah,
that might be, yeah. I was like, what is it, I should,
Yeah, we're
this is
going
why
to
Megan wants us always to spell out acronyms.
Yeah, that's right.
thirty-eight,
Fan of
86, PCT, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's modified.
Does that mean it's only 6 feet wider right of way?
6 feet wider streetscape, which is building face
Oh,
to
okay.
building face. The
But 10
right of
feet
way
wider right of
gets 10 feet
Okay.
wider. Yeah.
So with it written out in this new form, anybody feel so moved to propose?
What's the process from here, Emily?
So it will go to the select board.
Okay, even though we've requested changes?
Yep, it'll still go
Because
to the
that's
select
part of
board. They could
Public
still
hearing.
hold a hearing. They could still make changes.
Do we need to close the hearing before we make a motion?
Oh, you're correct. Yep, you should probably close the hearing.
Are we ready? I don't want to cut anybody off if there's more.
I'm ready.
All right, so let's close the hearing.
I'll make a motion since I caused some trouble.
Good trouble.
As authorized by WDB 8.2 and 24 VSA paragraph 4441, I, Chapin Caner, move that the Williston Planning Commission submit the amendment to the select board for consideration with the modification of street specification from ST 38-80 to ST 38-86 PCT.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Kate's like, I don't live here, I'm not gonna live here anymore anyway.
No, I think it's a good amendment.
I'm just kidding you.
I trust her to speak up when she's
Oh,
not.
yeah, no, I know.
We're gonna
Okay.
miss you, Kate.
Yes, we will definitely miss you, Kate.
Yeah, Kate, how many years did you serve?
7?
Wow,
7.
thank you.
Yeah, wow.
It's been a while. Goes by fast though. I'm definitely gonna miss everything here, so.
Yay, Ellie.
Hey, Ellie.
I didn't see you until you joined.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
Did you join the ways back?
Yeah, I joined about 5 minutes late. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, did you vote on the Trader Lane thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been here.
I'm sorry, you were off the screen.
You were off the screen as we were
Okay.
doing it. So.
Good catch. Do we want to jump over to the ARPA memo and discussion?
Yeah. So, let me share my screen again. Long story short, Williston has 1.8 million remaining in ARPA funds to spend. They must be committed by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026.
It's calendar years, right?
That is calendar years, I believe so. So the town manager is soliciting public input on recommendations for how to spend this money. He wants all the town boards and committees to weigh in. He's also doing listening sessions, little chats. He was at Adams Farm Market this evening. I linked on the agenda some of his other meetings if you want to talk to him one-on-one. So the planning commission should recommend ideas and create a priority order. I've provided some to, get the conversation started, things that have come up in the past. That could be good candidates for ARPA funds. And then what follows, if we need more detail about, what has already been allocated of the ARPA funds. There's some existing projects in the capital budget that have been checked off.
I thought your list was interesting. And I talked to Eric just an hour ago at the truckin', whatever it is, Tuesdays. And I should share what I said because I was representing us a little bit. The last 2 times that we reviewed the capital budget, we suggested including solar panels over the parking lot that's going to be put in behind the town hall. And also suggested the possibility of adding more storage so that instead of having fossil fuel diesel generators behind the police station and the town hall, we could perhaps be using electrical storage, which would be a benefit if it was on a large capacity. It'd be a benefit for shaving peaks to the town, to the Green Mountain Power as well as to the town. It might be some agreement could be reached where it didn't cost the town that much. Those are things that we brought up in reviewing the capital budget the last 2 years. And so I just reinforced those and said, even if the money is just to do the engineering, I'm assuming that you would not want to have solar panels on the immediate passageway in case you need a fire truck or a garbage truck to go down there, but that you could then put it on things in the center and the south side, and that it might be worth really making this a project. And Melinda, I hope I didn't step on you or the Energy Committee's toes at all in saying this. I just said, we've talked about it being a demonstration project so that developers of Taft Corners would have an example to point to when they want to put solar canopies over parking at Taft Corners, where we're hoping in the long run. And I mentioned to him that we were unable to include that you can't cut down a forest to put in a solar farm because we can't tell people they can't cut their trees. But everywhere that we can get solar that's already disturbed soil or impervious soil, like rooftops and parking lots, is where we see it as being important. And so here's the chance to do a demonstration project, at least the engineering, if not construction.
I'm gonna put a plug in for the unmet needs in our housing needs assessment. I like that one a lot. I think I'm not sure what the best use of that particular ARPA money is, or what the constraints are, and what the, and I recognize that 1.8 sounds like a lot, but goes fast. But I do think that either the first time home buyer, I think that there's some things in there that I really would love us to do. And we worked hard on that, and the staff worked hard on that, and I think it's a important thing for us to support.
Yeah, would it fit? There's the idea. We want more money in the housing fund that we already have, the affordable housing fund that we already have a little bit.
That was one of
Yeah.
things
To
in there.
me, if it meets the criteria to put more money in that fund, do it.
The things she has under the, oh, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, I agree that if we can do that, that's a good idea, but I'm wondering if that's allowed under ARPA rules to be able to put it away for later.
Spend it, right?
That's Ellie talking. Can't see
Yeah.
her.
We have to double check on that one.
Because they have to be obligated by 24 and spent by 26, right? So.
Right.
So
I
would it
know.
just mean,
Yeah.
I worry about that.
I'll double check on Eric with that one. I know he said that when the town took its ARPA funds, there was some option that we elected into that gave us more flexibility. A lot of acronyms are thrown around, but I think it might be, okay. We'd have to double check.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything per se where the town couldn't put that money into the housing fund, but it may need to spend it by end of 2026. So, so whether it puts it into the housing fund or just spends the money on a housing related project, yeah, kind of.
1 to 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, I think, no, Ellie, I think you are not wrong. I mean, I don't know how the town ARPA works, but I know how the state ARPA works, and we gotta spend it all, so we gotta spend it fast. So I think that one of the reasons I like this idea of putting it into that fund is creating some flexibility. And I don't know if it would have to be a different fund for the first time home buyer. That feels like launching a new thing would be harder than putting it into the existing fund and seeing if we could really get aggressive with some developers around that and with Champlain Housing Trust or whoever else to try and make something happen. quickly and maybe use the deadline to our advantage in that way. But I think you're not wrong. I think it is a risk, so we would have to be very on top of that.
I'd like to put a plug in for the digitization and online services. I think it would be beneficial for anyone who lives in our community to be able to just go to a link and fill out the most basic of forms and not have to drive to the town village and hope someone's there and be within business hours. And
So one of the things I'm thinking about as I look at these is also to consider the equity approach, like the equity lens in some of these. And obviously, like the affordable housing piece is really important. And a really crucial part of equity is also recognizing climate justice. So I really like the solar canopy piece. I've literally no interest in the wayfinding and branding.
me neither.
Yeah, whatever. But another sort of dimension that we might want to consider is, I hear you, Jill, on the digitization piece. I'm curious, like, who uses those records and what are their typical resources? Like, is it mostly, developers and lawyers who need these things, or are people who rent a place in town, are they needing access to, digital town records? That's just a question. I don't know who uses it, and is it worthwhile investing money in digitizing records that only a really small portion of the population will use, and they're a fairly privileged proportion? I don't know. Just kind of raising that. But I do think that another dimension of the equity piece for me is really about physical access to places. And that's where I'm excited by the, yet again, village to Taft Corners bike path connection or multi-use path, however you want to frame it. And the sidewalk plow also. So I think those are really important physical accessibility dimensions.
The sidewalk plow seems like low-hanging fruit too. It's $70,000, and it's a tangible good that we have for X amount of years. It seems like those kinds of investments are much more tangible to sell than wayfinding and branding.
True, yeah. And I guess, the sidewalk plow, something like that is also like, we can buy that quickly within this time frame. Whereas, digitizing or wayfinding or branding or some of those other things are a little bit more sort of ephemeral or ongoing, or they're just long-term projects. And I worry about that. Like, I really love the Developmental Disabilities Housing Initiative. I don't know that ARPA is the right mechanism for that, because we would have to be on a really accelerated timeline. And yeah, I just don't know.
Sorry, Kay, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to one of Megan's points, number 6, which is the connectivity. I think that one should be a little higher on the list. I think that would be a huge benefit to a lot of people.
For me, that one was, I was curious just like what the estimation of a cost of that could be. Like, is that way over 1.8 million and we'd just be like a little chunk of it? Or is, there's 1.8 can be a proof depending on your project.
Yeah.
But I think that we could identify a couple of critical gaps to work on.
Mm-hmm. Also, just kind of as an aside, that Maple Tree Place being mentioned in this is interesting, because I read the quarterly report And the traffic crash data are alarmingly high on Maple Tree Place Road, which is very upsetting to me because it's one of the few real concentrations of lower income housing. And one time years back, I don't know how much this has changed, I was doing a project that involved finding out like how many kids lived in that, how many school-age kids there were. There were like 40 school-age children in that neighborhood. And, you know, there might be more now, I don't know. So I'm a little concerned that the crash data from the police quarterly report were really high for that road. And yet some of our more vulnerable citizens are located there and are also often like using the crosswalk, and the kids getting on the bus have to cross the street to the other side for the bus to be going the right direction and those kinds of things. Anyway, so that was just kind of an aside, but that reading for today was like, ooh, Maple Tree Place is kind of popping up a couple places here.
Mhm.
I feel like we should be very protective and kind of elevate that, the safety of that neighborhood and the,
It's a lot of traffic.
yeah.
Didn't they do
exactly.
those?
It's a lot of traffic.
It's a cut through for,
Such
you
a,
know.
Yeah.
which it was designed to be.
Didn't they do
fair.
calming measures to slow people down because people were driving like 45 miles per hour? So they put those.
Yeah, that does
Curbs and
nothing.
things, I
You
mean-
just drive right over them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I think they help, but
Well, they're
It's not-
They don't,
it's
They're
not a
not-
very pedestrian-friendly street design.
Mhm.
There's sidewalks,
Yeah.
And the
there's a lot
curbs are
more on that
high.
street.
and the southeast corner not having an ADA curb.
And the trees are practically bonsai, like in the time that
Yeah.
they've
Mhm.
been there, they should be huge, and big trees do have a traffic calming effect, but it's like they haven't grown at all in 10 years or more.
they get damaged. You
Mhm.
see them die. I take that road all the time. with my
Wonder
rear.
what kind of soil they're in.
Yeah, and they also get blasted with salt and all of snow plows,
And
snow. And
And by the way, I love trees and I want to plant trees even along Route 2. But I don't feel that we can do a big budget item before 2026 because I really think we need a tree board and a town arborist, even if it's just a contracted person, before we can move ahead on any kind of scale.
because of things like what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
didn't I
Emily's
talk
noting.
about trees in here?
You did. And I just wanted to say, I really support that idea, but not in this time because I see needing a tree board and a town arborist as being predecessors. But I
Um,
strongly support that. Goals.
No, yeah, I do too. But that's a great point. I wanna, I agree that the sidewalk plow is a very tangible, thing. But I think even though it took us a long time to fight for that second plow, I think we can fight for that in a normal budget. And so I do also think we should think about
Yeah.
what is, less of a barrier to get in a normal budget cycle than something that would be harder to convince the select board to really invest
That's a good
in when
point,
they
yeah.
have constrained funding. And,
Right.
I don't have
There
specific
also-
input on which ones, but I think that that's just something, I do think that the sidewalk plow, we could bang that door down again.
Yeah.
Take a little while.
Or if it gets me the second half of 2026 and we haven't spent the money.
Right.
Right, now we can buy our sidewalk plow.
That's right.
There also are places that are banging up the sidewalk plow. And I don't know if funding for sidewalk maintenance needs to catch up in order for sidewalks to be better plowable.
I am curious about the number two, like what things would be, I have no idea what these things cost. So I do think it would be interesting to know, like, right, would we get 10 feet of bike path for 1.8 million or half a
Yeah,
mile?
like one
I
gap.
have
Right.
Right, yeah.
We bonded for it and have done a lot, so we know, right?
Yes, I would think so. I'm sure costs have changed and,
And it depends on the terrain a lot.
right. But like some of these projects, it's like, what already has a scoping study?
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
anything have engineering work? It's like, okay, go build it. And what are these small fixes? Like, is there a section of bumpy sidewalk that gets fixed? Where it's not like a whole engineering
Or-
project?
The sidewalk from the new, affordable, what's it called? Where
CHT to the
Yeah.
Route 2 intersection.
the intersection of Zephyr Road and Route 2A, there's right now about 150-foot gap in the sidewalk because they fixed the sidewalk. They added the sidewalk when they converted the hotel to a housing, but you still can't get from there the last 100 and some feet.
Right.
You can cross Zephyr and go on the rec path that's on the other side of it. But if you're already on this side, you have just 100 feet to go, you can walk in the street. And of course, there's getting through Southbridge without being on a road.
Right.
Well, I mean, some of those, like, we've been clamoring, as long as I've been on the planning commission, we've been clamoring for the Village to Taft Corners bike path. I don't
Are-
know that this is gonna be the right opportunity.
Are you talking about along Route 2 or the rec path that we already have?
Oh, sorry, the rec path, because
Yeah.
like, isn't that already kind of on the radar? What is the status of that? Would ARPA make any difference to that? Would it accelerate it? Would it fully fund it?
Yeah, I like that question.
Right. That's a good question. ARPA would probably realistic cover scoping if there's any section that's unscoped or engineering where it's, scoping is more broad. Okay, what path is the least resistance or best option? And then engineering is drawing up the plans and figuring out what the cost is and what kind of engineering contractor will be needed, if there's any bridges or specialty.
And purchasing right of way from landowners.
Right, purchasing right of way if that's needed. So ARPA funds could, and those, scoping and engineering can be several thousands and thousands of dollars, so it can be, a good chunk, to have that project designed, and then you can find other funding, or maybe get it prioritized on the state list for construction, depending on if it's, near state right of way, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess that's my question, is like, if the ARPA investment would be some kind of catalyst and really spark, that completion, then that would, be kind of a pretty high priority for me. But if ARPA would make, a tiny dent in a very long-standing, question, then I think we should just take that off the list because it's a distraction. Right?
The use of the rec path behind the school and along North Williston Road and down by Allenbrook School is fantastic. Lots, and also on somewhat on Old State Road, there's a lot of use of that rec path.
No, I mean, if we could connect downtown Taft Corners to the schools, whatever.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And I see people walking on Route 2 all the time, and that between the Catholic Church and Taft Corners. And, a lot of the people who I see walking some of them are for exercise. It's very clear they're like out there with their exercise gear on, but others are like, they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And those are the folks I'm kind of more concerned about, that we should be meeting their needs. And then I think the use of it would just expand tremendously if it was.
So I might break this one out. So it
Yeah.
sounds like number one is maybe housing, number two is these critical gaps. And I'm gonna make the village one, Village Taft Corners Connector, its own. So we can go into more of the nuance.
What's the next step here, Emily? Are you gonna,
The select board has to decide how to earmark the 1.8 million.
what are we writing a memo? What are we?
Yeah, so this will become, I'm editing this now, this will become the memo from the planning commission to the select board, so we can have the priority list and then some of the nuance, like maybe we're only interested in this Taft Corners Village thing if it gets us a nominal important step of the way there. And then would go to the select board. I don't know if we have to finalize it all tonight. I can make it a shared doc if folks wanna get in there and edit. And maybe at the next meeting, we can kind of finalize it, and maybe get some answers to some of these important questions about,
Yeah.
can it go to trust fund?
Right.
Does it make sense to have the path on here, et cetera?
I would like to have our memo, sorry, and I don't know if this is the goal, be shorter. Like have us really only give them our top 3 or 4.
I think that's a good idea, but I think for now, this is a.
Yeah. I just
Right.
didn't, I wasn't sure. It sounds like you don't have to finalize tonight, which is great, because I would also love to know. I mean, if it is, like you're saying, Megan, I agree with you. If like this would spark that path to happen, that is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
I mean, already we could cut, cause it sounds like sidewalk plow might be able to get out of regular budgeting. And the planting trees, it sounds like some more
That has some preliminary.
soul searching
things
needs to
first.
happen first.
I feel so.
Oops, I accidentally.
Yeah, I think these are wonderful. I support all of them.
Yeah, that's the thing, it's like, they're all great,
But
but.
I also think if you combine the energy committee's interest in the solar canopy with our interest, it rises higher. And so it bothers me to have it number 6 on the list, or whatever it is. When it's a sort of, it's something that we have recommended for 2 years that be done as a capital project, be added to the parking lot plans.
So far it's housing needs, bike ped gaps, path connection is in the third pending, parking lot solar, support DDHI. Might not be the right timeline for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for that, like, let's leave it on there and just ask some questions and find out, like, you know, what are the other possibilities?
I mean, I think if we could get them land, right, like if you could focus like 1.8 won't come close to building anything. So it's more about getting the land or getting buying the.
Or like matching funds for some housing
Yes.
trust
Yeah,
initiative
Yes.
or
Right.
something.
or both, right? If you could get some land and get some matching funds for CHC to do.
Which one? There's good news on that, right?
Right, they got a planning grant from ACCD to work with Champlain Housing Trust and some other organizations on planning, basically planning out how to develop this kind of service-supported housing, and actually focusing on a specific site in Burlington on, I think on St. Paul Street, there's a building. So basically what they'll get is at the end of, with this grant fund, they'll be able to, kind of do some pretty high level planning, and that will result in perhaps getting a project built. So,
That's great.
yeah.
Wow, awesome. So I don't know if this stays on our list in that case, or if it's been sort of preempted, or.
We want it in Williston too. We've had
Yeah.
people
Right.
who are Williston
Right.
residents wanting
Yeah.
their adult
Which I
children to be able to stay
understand.
here.
But again, the timeline is tricky,
Yeah.
it would be a very large and kind of ambiguous project. I almost wonder, I mean, like, maybe the St. Paul Street thing in Burlington is a showcase or a test case to demonstrate how to do this kind of development. Like, it's not I don't know of a lot of examples out there, so, maybe having a local example would be helpful in accelerating it later. I don't know, I'm very supportive of the idea. I'm just a little worried about the logistics and the practicalities.
I think it's another reason though, to put the money in, if we can, to put the money into the trust.
Right.
So that it goes there, and if they come forward, or if we find something specific, it does not negate this.
Right.
It could be used out of there.
Yeah.
But if something else arose that could be used out of there in the time frame needed, we could do that.
Yeah, and so
So I
that's
think it
maybe
is 1 in 5.
combined.
For the
Yeah.
select board, if our audience is a select board, I think we combine that into go to the trust fund,
Yeah.
and we find either the DDHI or affordable housing or whatever it is that can be done in that time frame, and that's where we put the money.
Mhm. Yeah, and it could be like affordable and accessible housing or something like that.
Or senior housing, and like, we need so many different kinds of housing.
Yeah. I feel like I mean,
We're aging, don't tell anybody.
can we change that from expedite to expedite?
That's what it's supposed to
I
be.
mean, expedient, more creative.
Is that even a word?
It's faster, it's even faster.
Expedite, there we go. Yeah, I don't think expedite is the word.
Is that the same word?
It's the correct word now.
Okay.
That's correct.
You got it. You're
I
all-
knew what you meant, but I was like, is that just a different?
And actually,
form of
it's expedite
Right?
bridging critical gaps or fixing.
Yes, right, we don't wanna make
We don't want to
gaps
make gaps.
faster. Yeah.
Resolving,
Closing.
yes.
Yes, great.
Perfect. Melinda, is there anything on the energy committee's list that we should be supporting?
So the Energy Committee is going to be discussing this at their next meeting next Wednesday. And I have yet to like draft up a preliminary list like Emily has. So, I mean, there's ideas floating around, but I think they would be very supportive of the demonstration solar canopy in the town hall parking lot, as well as, some other things, transition, things to initiate transitioning the town's fleet to electric, maybe buying a few electric vehicles or something like that, or putting in charging infrastructure, or some things that come to mind.
Are there any plans to put solar on the closed landfill at the end of Redmond Road?
So I think that the landowner CSWD would be supportive of that, but they have to sort of go through a process to close the landfill in accordance with Vermont Agency of Natural Resource requirements. And so they need to do that first before they can consider putting solar there.
Okay, so it's considered their land, not ours.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Melinda, speaking of the Energy Committee, do they take into account transportation?
Yes.
And so would they maybe be supportive of our bridging the gaps for pedestrian and?
Yes, absolutely. Same with sidewalk plows. Yeah. So there's a lot of overlap here.
Yeah, part of it is that we worked on the energy plan.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
wrote that.
Yeah, right.
And we worked on Taft Corners trying to make things fit with the energy plan. And And so it's not a surprise that we're converging a lot.
Yeah.
So the only ones on the list we haven't talked about, local historic preservation fund, matching funds for possible grants for Old Brick Church. It sounded like the town branding and wayfinding, that one was a dud.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about Old Brick Church and thinking how underused it is, and that the ADA piece is really a
Challenge.
yeah, it's really challenging and kind of a sticking point. I didn't know about the fire suppression system.
There's a bunch of people on Facebook and they may have been on Front Porch Forum too, I don't know, who are really against putting not a cell tower, but a hidden antenna, an invisible antenna in the belfry.
Yeah.
That is desecrating the building. But there is one in I believe in the Federated Church steeple. And
How come it doesn't help?
it gives, I know, I wonder that myself.
Yeah.
But it gives
So
them
bad.
thousands of dollars a year. And so I actually posed this question, I think it was on Facebook, to the group that was discussing, like, if it's an invisible antenna, it gives you the money, you can now get your fire suppression system. Isn't that a gain for the church? But I don't know.
Well, I think
Yeah,
part of
that's
the
a whole
sticking
thing.
point is the structure in the back that has to maintain the.
Well, yes, in fact, they want to have a diesel generator, and to me, they should have battery backup.
Right, so that's an interesting one. Because the town is the landowner of the brick church, it has a lot more authority to say what the lease agreement with Verizon is. It's not beholden to, you know, like the DRB has to say yes to projects that comply with the bylaws. So the select board could say, we're interested in this lease agreement, but only if there isn't a diesel generator, if it has an energy requirement. That kind of sparked my interest in making this recommendation, because where they propose an addition, the stairwell in the brick church that takes you up to the main level is on the side of that addition. And if the town ever wanted to make it ADA, aside from putting a ramp out in front of the building, maybe the existing addition that's there needs to be fully reworked or expanded, and making sure that the Verizon addition doesn't conflict with any opportunity for the town to improve ADA
Or they could build
accessibility.
an elevator for us
Right, yeah,
in the new
yeah,
addition with all their mechanicals and their solar battery backup.
et cetera, yeah, all of that.
Dream
kind of
big here.
Yeah, and in the past, you know, there are some grant funds out there that would help make the old brick church more ADA accessible, update facilities, add audio visual equipment, so you could have a performance there, but then it could also be, you know, a bigger town meeting space.
Yeah.
But that hasn't gotten anywhere, so I put it on the list.
I love the idea of, you know, helping the Old Brick Church become more of a genuine community space, that's accessible to everybody and safe. I don't know where it falls in this list though, because we have so many good
I guess
projects.
I would really wanna know more about what we're using it for. Maybe we
Yeah.
have that.
Fair enough.
The town band rehearses in the basement. It's rented out for events, and when we had the Old Brick Music Series, it was having pretty regular performances.
One thing I had been thinking about was, there's often calls for less structured youth space that's close to the school. And, you know, the library can get a little overcrowded with, especially the older students from the WCS population going over to the library for afternoon stuff or hanging out or books or whatever. And, you know, if the basement could be used as like a kind of, you know, fairly low-key youth center, like that would be amazing. But of course, we would want fire suppression and ADA accessibility for something like that. They go get their teeth fixed over there, they go and hang out with their friends over here. It's a whole middle school complex. Anyway, that was just a thought, like thinking like, all right, what else could it needs some life to it, and it's great that it's getting used a little bit, but I feel like there's so many more things it could do. And I've heard so many times in various groups saying, oh, well, we could have this kind of event. Oh, could we do it at the Old Brick Church in the basement? No, because it's not ADA compliant. And like when I was on the Historical Society, that came up all the time, because they don't have space of their own. And I mean, they do, but it's very small.
Within the library, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's very small. It's not like fenced space, right? So.
Yeah.
So one thing I'm hearing is that I think we collectively think the Old Brick Church can have more civic uses than it has now. And we support that. And part of that is fire suppression, part of it is ADA accessibility.
Right. Which is a good conversation to have. I'm not sure that ARPA funds are the way to get that. Maybe squeezing Verizon a bit is the route. I don't know. I don't know what the constraints are.
It sounds like Old Brick Church has more options for finding funds than a lot of these other projects. So I feel like maybe we don't need to put it in our top 3, top 5.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. On the digitization and online services, circling back to some of the questions on that one, the majority of people that do come in to do research are developers or lawyers or land records people on behalf of, it could be anybody who's buying or selling a property. With the recent flooding and everything, just thinking about how old this building is and how at risk all of our development records are. More recently we have been scanning things, but older stuff, even those boxes from 1986, like we don't have a lot of that older information accessible. The online services platform would be helpful to everybody, being able to simply easily access permit information. And then if the town ever wanted to add services, like if the fire department has a rental inspection program, or all of this tracking, the way things are done internally in the town is, it would make you cry sometimes. And a lot of the redundancies that are built into how, like, Andrew takes a paper administrative permit that someone filled out as an online PDF possibly, and then inputs into a spreadsheet. So all of the staff time that goes to something that a computer could do, would free up existing staff time to then go after some of these other higher goals. And we've done a lot of capacity building over the years to spend less time churning paper and more time doing cool stuff and supporting these interesting initiatives.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, this is exactly why this was high for me. I've had internships and low-level jobs for state government where, using a floppy disk and you had to put it onto a thing and wait for this thing, and the computer took 25 minutes to start, and that was where the record was held. And it's a waste of people's time. And it's like triple carbon paper. I mean, I think that eventually when you have money and things that you need to spend quickly, sometimes these projects are worthwhile to just bring you up into the modern era. And it's a huge save of time once you eventually get it done.
And we did a little research in the past as to what it would be, and they are very expensive upfront costs. So once you scan in all the records, that's probably, it could be anywhere from, 20 to 30 grand possibly, but then it's done. And once you import all of your permitting and paperwork systems into the online platform, then it's just an annual maintenance cost. It's that upfront cost, that's the big hurdle. And if it's on here and then the select board bumps it to the capital budget, that regular budget, that would be,
That'd be
at
great.
least it's on there.
Do we know what the number is? Like, what's the total for the beginning, for the hard part?
I would say for the planning office alone, it would be probably around $50,000 to onboard into a permitting services. If we are onboarding other departments, generally the way these are cloud-based service providers, the more department modules you add, the cheaper it is per department. When you're adding in, different tasks and workflows. So it wouldn't chew up all of the ARPA funds for sure, but it would be probably for the whole town around like $100,000.
It's closer to a snowplow.
But harder to fund. I think it is harder to fund.
Yeah, way because no one ever invests in this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I do
I get it.
implore the
That's a compelling argument.
taxing and the.
And if we could free up Emily and Melinda and Matt to do real things, I just feel like that power that just generates more like good things for Williston.
So this feels like one that's an administrative efficiency and would typically come through department heads and not from the planning commission per se. To me, we have more of an interest in it. We support it, but we have more of an interest in it if in fact it creates more equity for townspeople who need to get permits and so forth. If it has some benefit to the public, direct benefit to the public. And I say that about going through administrative channels just because you have to select a vendor, you have to select somebody to lead the project, which is often someone you hire to do it. And then you may get interns or something to do some of the onboarding, but you need to manage the whole process of the transition of technology. And how that's managed determines whether it's a really good, efficient or. And I feel like we're not in a position to know that or to recommend any detail.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I feel like I would just say I would support that, and as long as as a department you propose it and it's accepted.
But yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like that should ultimately be the town manager's office. That's
It
directing
should come
that
from Matt
whole
to
thing.
Eric.
And the whole town should do it all at the same time, like not piecemeal.
And the
Right,
justification to
exactly.
the public for it should be something that the town manager and the select board can defend.
Yeah.
And so
And
I
the
feel
flooding
like,
is a great example of why it's necessary.
say that again?
The flooding in
yes,
other
yes.
towns.
Yes,
We've been
So-
lucky, but.
yes. So I support it, but it feels a little bit out of place on our list of priorities.
Yeah, it's definitely more on the back end side of things for sure.
I just want to do a quick time check because we were 8:15. So do we feel confident about the top 5? Or the top 3, however we kind of want to. I know I like sending 1-page memos. I don't know if that's possible.
Could we leave the top 5 and get some of the answers and then narrow it at the next meeting? Is that doable?
Yeah.
Is that too slow or is that okay?
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. In top 5, housing, bike pad gaps, village taft quarters path, parking lot solar canopy, and functionality of old brick church.
And could we, for the bike ped, well, for each of them, it's like too much hassle. Can we get some more like estimates on money, like amount?
Or at least where they are and various scoping and.
Yeah, which things
engineering.
are ready in a sense.
Right. There's another one in my head, and I would like to raise this separately, is Mountain View Road. Which should
The bike
still
lane.
be, still be hanging out there as a circ alternative in some ways, but no movement on it.
Wait, what about Mountain View Road?
Has no
Adding
biking,
bike lanes.
safe
Adding
biking.
bike.
Yeah, well, especially because we're building housing out there like crazy, including ultimately the Glazer property, if that goes through, as well as what is the new one called? The Summerfield,
Summerfield,
right,
which, so with official map, what we say is we want an off-road multi-use path. So the scoping study that was done at the Regional Planning Commission level and that the select board approved wanted on-street bike lanes because it was, I think it might have actually been slightly more expensive, but it was less contentious than doing the off-street multi-use path. But through our development review process, we've been pushing on either getting easements from landowners or subsections. So Summerfield's gonna build like this dinky little subsection, but it'll be a portion, and if Glazer, whatever route that ends up going through, would be required to build their portion. So we're getting it from private developers. I'm not sure if anything would happen at this town level to change the alternative and say, no, we're gonna go back, we're not gonna do bike lanes, we're gonna continue out this off-road path.
Yeah, well, anyway.
I mean, I think
updates on-
the
Yeah.
off-road path is fine. It's
Yeah.
a way to get,
We need something over there. It's just terrible right now, and yet it serves so many, potential folks between Taft Corners and residential areas and then the village. I
Yeah.
mean, folks who live in Summerfield,
Good.
it's, or wherever, connecting to schools, to the library, all those things are really important.
I wonder if this is, one page is very compelling, for sure.
Where's our
Pictures
page
are
break?
also very compelling.
Yeah,
So I'm almost seeing like a PowerPoint slide where, like, for the first one, housing needs assessment, like we have that one line statement and then a couple of photos and like, I'd love to get pictures of some of these places in town and maybe if you folks could maybe help with some of that, like,
Sure.
these gaps and these bad areas and then have the collage of bad gaps and then what that one statement is and, it's your slide deck pitch to the select board, make it digestible.
Like that.
Cool photos of those solar canopies, a good reason to go to Alchemist Brewery and get a picture of theirs. That kind of thing.
All right, does that sound like we've talked through that at that point? Ready to head to the Mentimeter again?
Mentimeter. Which I used today.
How many do we have left?
Just two. I was
Just
at the Community Leadership Summit today, and I did a presentation that included Mentimeter, where I basically brag about how cool my planning commission is, that like,
Oh, well.
we handle contentious issues politely and effectively.
I thought you and Matt did a great job having that, there were too many questions. It's too many areas, but, except for the volume, it was a really good way of doing it.
Yeah, well, and it's very efficient for you to get a lot of fairly kind of quick feedback.
And talk about equity, those of us who are extroverts and speak easily don't hog the floor. Everybody puts in whatever they want.
Cool, so I think we got through,
we have two left, right?
natural resources. What's the, let me get this screen share up. 7842.
Menti.com.
Yeah, and there's the QR code if you want to scan it.
Are we on the page that you want us to be on? The what's controversial?
Yeah, so what's controversial about utilities and facilities in Williston?
You have them all already.
I know, you got them. Oh, my. What's the boundary of facilities here?
Anything that the light touches. So town buildings. I think like multimodal hub can be on there, you know, public spaces, library, community center. I think it's fine to talk a little bit about schools.
Right.
And school grounds as well. A sewer pump station is both a utility and a facility. It's a utility in a building.
I forget, if we do multiple ones, do we submit each time?
Yeah, I think you can do multiple submissions.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
Actually, we do have a public health. Terry McKay.
No public health officer with real authority.
Yeah. Oh. Oh, but that, see, when I think we should have a tree board and even if it's a part-time contracted arborist, where does that,
I think this would probably fall under that.
here, okay.
Yeah.
What is, that's not Ethan Tapper's job, the guy who's always in the Observer?
No.
He's our county forester.
Oh,
He's not for street trees and stuff, he's for forest management in larger tracts.
gotcha.
He's doing a great job of educating the public about the
I
evolving.
love his, yeah,
areas.
I always read his thing.
Mm-hmm.
Convinced me
lucky to
not to
have
cut down my dead logs.
You're dead what?
Like, I have two trees that are very dead, but I read something about how it's, you know, great
They're
for my
snags.
ecosystem, and they're not dangerous, and I go and push them every now and again, they're fine. But, sure enough, lots of woodpeckers.
Cool, so ready to go to the next one?
Hold on, I'm gonna add one more. Okay.
What do you want to ask about utilities and facilities?
Still on the previous one.
Oh, don't worry, if it went in on the other one, we can
Okay.
move them around.
Anything with a question mark at the end?
Yep.
Right, in this one?
Yep, yeah, there's, last time, I think there was a bit of
Yeah.
Yeah,
that, so
I did that.
we were able to switch them over really
Thank you.
easily.
Good.
Cool. Ready to go to the next one?
Not quite.
Oh, okay. Oh, I think Matt was timing this last time.
Yeah.
And who do you want to ask?
Sounds like a hit list.
Yeah.
Why do you do it this way?
Cool. All right, are we ready to go to the next one?
Almost.
Megan has a lot to say.
I do, especially because I didn't get the right ones.
Okay, so we're on our final topic, education.
Oh, gosh.
Let's just say lead, not lewd.
Well, lewdness could be a problem
It
too,
is,
but
yeah,
yeah.
that's not what was meant there.
What's the situation with the driving and the busing? Anyone shed some light on that?
Who wants to go?
I'm not there yet. Like, what's
Oh,
is there
yeah.
not enough busing?
There's
Williston-
oh my gosh.
Williston supplies
Is it,
bus
if
service.
it's too long, we're off track for getting done at 9. If it's too
But
long of a
sometimes
question.
sometimes the bus service doesn't match the needs of the parents. And they either have to leave earlier to get to work or so instead of seeing their kid off onto the bus, they drive them to school. And this is a very large, or they're worried about behavior on the bus. There's a whole lot of reasons why people drive their kids. But a large number of parents drive their kids, even though the school system provides bus service. And some of them, the reason is just takes a long time for the way the route is for a kid to get to school.
So they're just sort of opting out and opting to drive.
They just opted in the bus service and to the point that there are long lines and
Traffic.
left turning traffic on Route 2, trying to get into Wilson Central School at certain times of day.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
it's certainly terrible for the environment.
Right. Well, it just it also
Duplication of
seems like you have empty buses. That's what I see all the time. It's just empty buses. There's like 5 kids on the bus that comes to our neighborhood.
Yeah.
It seems like such a waste. It's like we don't need buses. We need a lift.
All right, what do you want to ask about education in Williston?
Oh, I should have just said buses versus driving.
I think buses was well represented on the last one.
No, Williston should not build a high school. Terrible example. Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to.
I'm the one who just said, I don't want to ask much. To me, this is like a school district survey question, not a Williston planning. It overlaps our goals, but I feel like it's like the driving to school is one that we should address, but most other things about the school are, to me, something the district should be surveying, not.
Is it because it has to be in our town plan now?
Yeah, I mean, if there are things that go in our town planning that would affect it, yes. I feel like so many things I can think of about the school are really school business, school parent, district decisions. The things that we as residents of Williston can say about the school are limited.
Maybe that's your question.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I'm working on cooperation between the school and the town all the time. and it's good. The cooperation's good. It's hurt by the fact the district isn't just Williston, but other than that, it's good.
Well, are we ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I'm pretty sure this is our last slide. Who do you want to ask? No, I raised, there you go. Shoot. Who do you want to ask about education in Williston?
I am showing up.
What's that?
Why aren't showing up on her screen?
Mine aren't either.
Oh, no, mine aren't either.
For the who?
Nope, there we go.
Oh, got it.
Huh.
No, it's working now. It was just empty before.
Oh. Oops. You know, Melinda, this raises a good question, which is how can we supply EV charging stations to teachers who park at the school? It would really help support them having EVs if they could charge while they're at school.
Some of the buses are hybrid.
Maybe under some solar canopies.
Yes, put some solar canopies on those parking lots.
That's what I put in one of my previous ones.
Cool. So we finished the survey.
All right.
Nice. Thank you, guys.
That was easy.
The what do you want to ask is gonna be really helpful for us for sure. When we were looking through all those responses, you know, formulating informed survey work stuff. We're gonna feed this to North Star Planning that's helping us with our outreach campaign. The stuff we're doing now with the postcards and the banner, that's our teaser activities for the fall. Yeah. So last item on tonight's agenda is another survey, but it's not our survey. It's the state survey. So the state of Vermont is evaluating and reimagining Vermont's designation programs for the next 25 years. While we're all in the room, we're gonna individually take the survey. you guys are eligible to either earn $10 as a gift card or donate it to flood relief. Melinda and I will also be taking the same survey, but we're not eligible because we get paid to take the survey. And then there's several different kinds of surveys available, so, if whoever you work for, any nonprofit groups you're aware of, regular citizens, they can take a survey. There is a design summit on September 12th, which is a Tuesday, it's the second Tuesday. If anyone wants to go, let us know, it'll be down in Randolph Center. So generally, the project is, what's working, what's not working about Vermont's designation programs, and how should they evolve in the future. Williston has 2 designations, Village Center and Growth Center. It makes us and businesses eligible for funding, grant opportunities. A lot of the grants we've done, like municipal planning grants, are because we have some of these designations. Yeah, so go to vtdesignation2050.org, and I can drop the link in the Zoom chat as well.
It's the agenda
And
too. if any-
There's a choice of a quick survey or a 15 to 20 minute, which I don't have time for. Is it quick okay?
Yeah, we can do the quick one, or we could breeze through we're running low on time, so we could do that one. I think it's the long form one that will make you eligible for the moolah.
But we click the take this survey, right?
Yeah, and you wanna choose the one for municipal program.
Oh, not
users.
general, just
Oh,
program users.
designation
I'm sorry, is it
program
this one?
user survey for cities and towns.
Designation program user survey.
Yes. Okay.
You can save and continue.
Planning commissioner, development review, or whatever other one.
Oh, yeah, you can save and continue. That's good if you do the long form one.
If folks don't mind, I took the survey earlier when I was doing some prep, and I'm getting some SOS texts about bedtime routine. So I might let Shayla adjourn the meeting if folks don't mind, and I'll jump off.
I can do that.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Kate, for your service too. It was a pleasure getting to know you. Good luck in Rhode Island.
Yes, thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
See
Good
ya.
night. Thanks, Phil.
Make the slider bar any smaller. Alright.
Oh, and if you get a question about neighborhood development area, we're considering that one.
Just trying to buy our votes. What are we hoping to gain from that neighborhood development thing?
Streamlined permitting processes and fees to make it easier for housing development. Reduce costs to develop housing.
And we don't have any other designations or past designations.
We have village and growth center, and we want neighborhood development.
So applying, considering, is that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so village center benefits, grant eligibility, historic tax credits, priority for state grants. And the benefit of growth centers.
Apparently typically growth pressure on other parts of town, right?
Right, designated growth centers must include or support a designated downtown village or new town center. Align public infrastructure and private building investments with a local framework of policies and regulations to ensure that 20 years of future development will enhance the vitality of the commercial center while protecting farm and forest outside of the growth center.
And on the neighborhood development area, what are we looking for? I realize you said this and I was answering another question.
Neighborhood development area would help streamline the permitting process and fees to reduce costs to create housing.
Is there anywhere affordable or inclusionary zoning fits?
Within neighborhood development project areas, priority housing projects are exempt from Act 250 and are reducing the state application fees. They also have some tax credit benefits and other reduced state permit fees for priority housing projects.
Doesn't like our spelling of inclusionary.
The long version has a bunch of stuff about the application process, which I know nothing about.
That's why we're doing it now.
Okay, Yeah. The other one I know nothing about is which program benefits or incentives has your municipality accessed or used?
Does it list them?
So then it says tax credits for historic rehabilitation, sod or code improvements or flood mitigation.
No.
So we're not interested and we haven't used them.
We probably aren't, we probably just haven't used them, and some of the tax credits are more geared towards private owned buildings.
Priority considerations for specific state programs, municipal planning grants, like pedestrian transportation, alternatives, CDBGs, wastewater funds, affordable housing funds, property assessment funds. We use those.
Sorry, I wasn't there yet when you
Okay.
answered for Sheila. So now I'm on the program benefits, tax credits for historic rehabilitation, just other code improvements.
Yeah, we haven't used those, and I don't even think I'm aware of any businesses in the village that have used them. Not, at least not recently.
So what should we answer?
Yes, these are weird
Are we
options.
interested and eligible?
Right, it's really
Or
crazy
interested and not
options.
eligible or not interested?
We're unaware of benefit, that seems like not the other end of this spectrum. Poor survey design.
Yeah, that's another thing with this taking the survey is like an R&D, what you would, research and development. So what we like and don't like about this survey.
Okay, so I'm gonna say NA or don't know.
That's what I
Yeah.
put for them. It's too.
Priority consideration for specific state programs.
Yeah,
We
so
have
anything
used that,
that's,
right?
yeah, anything that's a grant one especially are things that we have.
Priority consideration for all state funding programs,
Mhm.
downtown only benefits. Yeah, they have a sprinkler system rebate. Huh. But that's a downtown only benefit. Would the village center count?
Oh, no, village center and downtowns are different.
Tell them they need to add the sprinkler rebate to the village.
Yeah, add that in there. There's
Do
a,
you have input on program benefits, incentives, or impacts?
So scroll down so far, I can't see the options.
It's like a free.
So when it gets to special tax assessment district, we're interested in that in the long run, right? In the TIF,
right, yep, we are interested.
and are we eligible?
We would, I believe so.
Act 250 regulatory relief?
Yes,
Guess what? We have accessed or we're interested
we are interested.
and we're eligible?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, what was the story of the special tax assessment district?
We are interested in eligible.
Okay, and that, is that just TIFs or is that other things too?
I'm sure that there are probably some other funding options, yeah.
say other and specify below and there's nowhere to enter anything. Yeah. So which one is our primary designation?
Village center.
Okay. Oh, right, that's the one.
Okay, I gotta go. Oh, I have to get contact information.
Can I ask another one, Emily?
Mm-hmm.
What do you like most about your designation program?
The moolah.
Probably fun grant funding opportunities.
What do you dislike?
Growth center feels like the redheaded stepchild sometimes.
Sorry, I gotta go.
Oh, no, you're good. Yeah, and if anyone else has to jump off, I think you can save your progress and hop on it on your computer later. Just don't close your tab. Night, Chapin.
Good night.
A lot of these are really staff questions. Like, what's hard about managing the program, the village center?
Mm-hmm. I don't know, myself,
Yeah.
it hasn't been too hard. So maybe that could be good feedback to them.
Yeah.
It's saying, it encourages planning commissions to do this version of the survey. But maybe the general interest and
Yeah.
input one might be more appropriate for volunteers.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just making stuff up if I have.
Mhm.
I'm just saying no, no, no.
Looking ahead the next 25 years, what specific changes would you like most like to see?
Probably more funding for, build projects.
have to run too.
Yeah, it is 9:15, so if folks wanna, if there's questions you're stumped on, reach out to us, we can help out. And then if anyone wants to go to their event on September 12th, let us know.
Awesome. Should we do a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I'll second that.
Right, see you again.
Ready?
And bye, Kate, best of luck.
Hi, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's so nice to get to know you, and we wish you the best.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Night.
Good night.
Bye, Kate.